No way they do this. A writer has proposed a ridiculous trade between the New York Islanders and the New York Rangers that would send Adam Pelech to Madison Square Garden. And we're going to talk about it on this episode of Islanders Digest. And I know the idea of the Islanders and the Rangers making a trade may sound ridiculous, but I don't think it's as crazy as some people are making it out to be. And more importantly, I think this is a really interesting projected trade to talk about because I think it gets the value for Adam Pelech right. And this is something that I've been talking about a lot throughout this offseason. I think the value for Adam Pelech is higher than a lot of Islander fans think. And the fact that some Ranger fans, while they might not all want to make this trade, respect the value of Adam Pelech really cements that belief that the Islanders can get a lot for this player, and why it might not happen with the Rangers. There are some other teams that definitely are going to be interested in Adam Pelech, which makes you have to ask, does it make sense for the Islanders to move this player now? We're going to discuss it all on this episode, but really quickly before we get into that, we are getting closer and closer to our goal of having 2,000 subscribers before the NHL season begins. I cannot wait for this Islanders season. Thank you to all of you who have already subscribed to the channel. If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Now let's talk about what the Islanders can get in a trade from Adam Pelech. And this article is going to be linked in the description below. It is from Heavy Media, and Cole Shelton suggested a trade where the Islanders send Adam Pelech to the Rangers for Scott Morrow and a second-round pick. And we're going to go over what that value is. If the Islanders can get a deal like this for Adam Pelech, I think they should 100% take it. I'm going to explain why in just a bit. But first, I want to talk a little bit why this works for the Rangers and why I think, well, I don't necessarily think this trade is going to happen. I think it makes sense for both teams. From the Rangers' perspective, their left side of their defense is absolutely horrendous. And I don't like to talk, actually no, I love to talk about how the Rangers are a complete disaster, honestly, in my opinion, especially when you go in terms of the long-term future for this team. Do I think the Rangers are going to have a better season than the Islanders next season? Absolutely. I think they just have more talent, but that talent is aging. And while I do really like the Gavrikov signing, I was really hoping he would sign for $8 or $9 million. That $7 million is a real good deal. But after that, they are really weak on the left side, with Susi being currently projected as their second pair left-handed defenseman, and their third pair left-handed defenseman is Braden Schneider. And while I really like Braden Schneider, he is a right-hand defenseman, which in my opinion, he plays better on the right side. There are some guys who can play both sides. Schneider is stepping up to try to do that for the Rangers, but I just don't think he really fits in that position. And notably, Scott Morrow, the player who would be projected to come back to the Islanders in this trade, is currently projected to be on their third pair of their defense, which is one of the reasons why I think this trade is a deal that does make sense for the Islanders. And if they can find something like this with another team, assuming the Rangers and Islanders are not going to make a move, this definitely makes a lot of sense for the Islanders long term. We've already talked about it a lot on the channel. Adam Pelech is a good defenseman. He provides a lot of value. We all know what Adam Pelech can do. The one issue with Adam Pelech is he has not stayed healthy for full seasons, but in the 60 games he gives you per year at this point, he is always incredibly stable defensively. He almost always has a positive plus-minus rating, which is especially impressive when you consider how many goals the Islanders gave up last season, and considering that he plays against the other team's top players every single night, and he chips in a couple assists. He's not a big point scorer. He's never going to be put on the power play, but he's not a black hole offensively in the sense where if there is a play that he needs to step up, he'll do it, and he'll facilitate a pass. He'll put pressure on the other team's defense, but he is not going to light the lamp offensively. Still, I don't think he's a black hole in that sense. And I do think on a team like the Rangers, his 21 points last season would probably look a bit more like 30. Again, not lighting the lamp, but you got to keep in mind, there was not much offense being scored on the Islanders. There's a lot of value with Adam Pelech, and when I always talk about trading him, and when we bring up why the Islanders should trade Adam Pelech, it's not a knock against him. More so, it's just the simple fact that the Islanders have a lot of left-hand defensemen coming up. They've just locked up Romanov for the next 8 seasons. Matthew Schaefer is obviously going to be one of the franchise pillars on the left side of the defense for the Islanders. They have Isaiah George, and then on top of that, they drafted Kashawn Aitchison. And they also have other players who they've also drafted who also might be able to make a push to play on the left side eventually, such as Jesse Pulkkinen. As a result, it just doesn't seem like there is a lot of room for Pelech, and he has a lot more term on his contract, making just under $6 million for the next 4 seasons. Again, if the Islanders were closer to contention, this is a player that you do want to keep. He's a player who provides a lot of value. It's just considering where the future of this team is, at some point, the Islanders are going to have to move. I really don't think that's the question. The question more is, does it make sense to do it now? And what my argument is going to be is simple. If it's a deal like this, where you can get a young right-handed defenseman and a draft pick, then absolutely it is the right time to move Pelech. You don't move Pelech for the sake of clearing cap space, because you don't need the cap space. In fact, if you were to make a trade with the Rangers, I would suggest the Islanders also take back a player like Soucy, where they can just eat the cap for a season. Doesn't really make a difference. You let him go his separate way after that. The cap is not the issue with the Islanders. It's just more the long-term future with Pelech. And therefore, you're in the position where if you're going to trade Pelech, you have to get value. And I think a trade like this is exactly what you want to see. Scott Morrow is a player who I am very high on. I was actually furious with the Hurricanes. So if you're a Ranger fan upset about earlier when I kind of made fun of the future of your franchise, I will say one of the issues with the Rangers' future is not Scott Morrow. I was genuinely furious with the Carolina Hurricanes when they threw him in the trade for Keandre Miller. It just didn't seem necessary. I thought the first round pick and a second round pick, then that second round pick is what is also being sent to the Islanders in this projected trade. I thought that was already plenty of value for Keandre Miller. Throwing in a prospect who I think, granted he's a little older at 22, one of their better defensive prospects who has a lot of potential from the right side of the defense. I think this is a player who can really play a solid two-way game, had 39 points in the AHL. This is exactly what I think the Islanders should be looking for. And if there is one Achilles heel with the Islanders prospect pool, if there is one thing keeping from them from being one of the top prospect pools in the entire NHL, when I say top, I mean one of the top 3. I think they're in the 5 to 10 range, closer to 5 than 10, honestly. But if there is one issue with this prospect pool, the Islanders have no right-handed defensive prospects. I'm not even talking like a grade B or grade C defensive prospect. There is absolutely nothing in the cupboard from the right side. And with guys like Ryan Pulock on the right side, Tony DeAngelo, you are going to need more right-handed defensemen. It's why, and we're not going to be talking about this for a while, but it's why when we talk about next year's drafts, considering the Islanders have 2 picks, assuming they don't pick up another first-round pick, which if the Islanders don't get a player like Scott Morrow, I can definitely see them also getting a first-round pick from a team like the Rangers. If in the case of the Rangers, it would be like the lower of their 2 picks. Definitely can see that being in place of a player like Scott Morrow. I definitely think the peak value of Adam Pelech is a first-round pick and a lower-level prospect. But in the Islanders' case, I would rather take a player like Scott Morrow. This is exactly what they need. Again, going back to the draft, if they have a pick in the draft, they're likely going to have to pick a right-handed defenseman, or 2 anyway, because they're going to need multiple right defensemen in the future. This would be a perfect way to get a player who can develop with the team now. And with any team the Islanders try to make a trade for Adam Pelech with, I do think a talented right-hand defensive player, either a young player who's just getting used to the NHL and trying to build himself up, or a prospect who hasn't played games yet but is close to being ready, is exactly what you're looking for. And because of that, I would make that trade 10 times out of 10 if I was the Islanders. If I was the Rangers, I probably would want the Islanders to eat a contract as well, a Soucy contract, and that would definitely make the deal less exciting for Islander fans, but I still think I would accept it in that case. Now, I do want to talk about other teams that can trade for Adam Pelech and whether or not this makes sense, because while I do think a trade between the Islanders and Rangers is possible, especially considering I don't think the Rangers are an Adam Pelech away from winning the Stanley Cup. It'd be different if you were trading them the Stanley Cup. I think there are bigger issues with that team, which is why I called them a disaster earlier. And for Ranger fans watching this video, I'm sorry. I just think there are a lot of problems with the organization, and I don't see it getting any better as their top players continue to age. I think the issue has just been developing young players has gotten worse and worse. But talking about other teams, the Islanders are more likely to make a trade with. One team that's really caught my eye, and maybe it's just because I've been eyeing the Colorado Avalanche so much because the Islanders have their first round pick this season. But the Colorado Avalanche, I am not impressed with the left side of their defense at all. Devon Toews, I love Devon Toews. I understood the trade at the time. They'll always have a special place in my heart. But after that, Samuel Girard is a defenseman who I don't think is worth $5 million. I have never personally been impressed with the way he plays. Yes, he does have some good foot speed. He is good at breaking the puck out, but I've never been impressed. They definitely need an upgrade on the left side of their defense, especially when it comes to shut down players. If there's one thing that Colorado showed they could not do in the playoffs last season, it was shut down other teams. So I would definitely think that a Adam Pelech trade would work for the Colorado Avalanche. The Islanders could always take a Girard back in return. I think the Islanders maybe could use a Girard more than the Avalanche anyway. Use him on the second line of the power play until the contract expires. After all, Tony DeAngelo is quite likely leaving after next season, so you're going to have a spot. I think that could work pretty well, and it's only 2 years, and then obviously you get probably the other first-round pick. The one right now, it's contingent on how they do this season, which first-round pick the Islanders get. If they don't miss the playoffs, the Islanders are getting the first-round pick this year. If they get both of them, I think that's a team that can work. And another team that I really am interested in when it comes to potentially trade for Adam Pelech is the Detroit Red Wings. Looking at the left side of their defense, while the Colorado Avalanche do have Toews that make things a little better, the left side of the defense for the Detroit Red Wings is simply abysmal. Ben Chiarot is not a first-pair left-hand defenseman. He shouldn't be an everyday player at this point. I think he's okay. I think he's like a better version of Scott Mayfield. So having him on your first pair and then Gustafsson and Edvinsson, I think has a lot of potential and likely will be playing first pair by the end of the season. But still, you need another guy, a veteran presence, and Detroit is really pressured to make the playoffs soon. This rebuild is going on for a long time, so that's another team I would definitely look to trade Adam Pelech. The one thing that's tricky about trading Adam Pelech is a lot of the established teams in the NHL have a really strong top four in defense, especially on the left side of defensemen. The left-hand defensemen are easier to find, so even though Adam Pelech is, in my opinion, still one of the better shutdown defensemen in the NHL, most other teams in the playoffs have guys who are at least good enough to fill that position. But these three teams, the Rangers, I think the least likely to actually make a trade with the Islanders, even though I think they are one of the more desperate ones. The Colorado Avalanche and the Detroit Red Wings all make sense, in my opinion, to trade for Adam Pelech. And again, if a package like a Scott Morrow and a second-round pick is offered, then I 100% would make that trade. But I don't think the Islanders should retain any salary. And if the value is not there, I think they should just hold on to Adam Pelech because he will be a good mentor for these defensemen coming up. But let me know what you think about this in the comments below. What do you think Adam Pelech's value is? Would you do that trade that we talked about on this episode of Islanders Digest? Love to know your thoughts. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.